Whatever it is, it's not right on the teleprompter. I don't know what that is. I've never seen that. I can't read it. There's no words on it. I can't do it. We'll do it live. No. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live.
Welcome to the podcast. It's been a while. We have since evolved in our recording software and recording equipment, myself included. I just bought a new mic, so hopefully I sound better than last time. Grace, we had a few comments last time about your mic levels, and I believe we're going to try to fix that this time around. So hopefully everything is kosher in that regard. But we'll start things off like we normally do. Just a little update on everyone's life. What has been the highlight of y'all's week? Anyone can go, I guess.
Yeah, so I'll start. So I have two kind of cool things that happened. First of all, this isn't great, like in terms of the status of the world or whatever, but due to the coronavirus, my semester has been pushed back the start date until January 31st. So I've got another 3 weeks without having to teach. So that's kind of nice. And another thing is, for the past year or so, I've been dealing with this like extreme fatigue, and I think it's because I was over drinking caffeine, because I totally just went off of caffeine, and now I don't feel the need to take a nap or anything. So that's like a whole new thing. I've been super, what's the word? I've been able to do things a lot more. It's been great.
You've been more active.
I've been productive. Yeah.
There you go. Grace, how about your week?
It's been pretty good. I would have to say the highlight for me has been probably going shopping. More so because I don't really fit into a lot of my pants anymore, and that's been kind of discouraging, being back home and only really being able to wear my sweatpants. I'm like 20 years old now. I'm not the same size I was when I was 17, 18. You put on, especially during COVID, everyone, their body went through some changes. So I got to do some shopping, did some thrifting, and I got some new pants that fit me, and I'm really excited about that. That's been a very good highlight. Also helps with my confidence a little bit, feeling like I have other outfits I can put together now because I have more options for, pieces of clothing. So yeah, that's been my highlight.
There you go. I guess, going on to my side of the pond, things have been good. Been hitting the road hard this past week with coverage, local high school coverage. I was just at Marysville last night and had a really good photo shoot covering wrestling. They had this spotlight. Only one light in the whole room was on, and it was the spotlight over the mat, and it was kind of difficult to get the settings right on my camera, but I was pretty happy about how the photos turned out, and I posted a few of them on Twitter, and the coach and a couple of the local fans have interacted with it. But on that same note, I posted another photo of one of the Ohio State players that I had the chance to document just this past season. And I posed the question of I posed this question. I know that you guys aren't really that interested in football, but there's this guy, his name's DeJuan Jones. He plays right tackle for the Bucks, for the Ohio State Bucks. And he's a junior this year, and I posed the question out on Twitter, and I tagged him in it. I didn't think that anyone was going to really see it. I was like, you line up against DeJuan Jones. What's your first move? And then he retweeted it. He liked it. And then Travion Henderson, one of the breakout freshmen for the Bucks just this past year, he quote tweeted it, and his quote tweet got over about 1,500 likes. So that was a lot of good exposure for me. So I was pretty happy about that, and I hope to do that later in the future. So that might be another goal, just to get the attention of one of the Ohio State Bucks, because exposure is great no matter what size or form it comes in. So I was pretty happy about that. And with that, also moving forward, we're going to try to do something different here. At the end of our discussions about how our weeks went, we're going to make a goal for the next week. What we're going to do for the next episode is to make sure that each member of this podcast has accomplished that goal. So these are going to be short-term goals that are easily obtainable, just small little things here or there. And I guess with that, I'll start with my goal. My goal is to have 60% of my apartment moved into my new apartment, if that makes sense. So 60% of the valuables and possessions that I own here, I will move to my storage unit so that I can move into my apartment later this month. That's a goal for me. Right now I have about like 20% of my stuff packed away, but I need to do a little bit more. So that's my goal.
So I think my goal for the upcoming week is to work on some math research problems a little bit. So it's been something I've been kind of putting off for a long time because I've been tired, and I finally figured that out. So hopefully I can get kind of back into that, and that'll be good.
So this is my last week home from break. I'm going to start the next semester of school in a couple weeks, but I'm going back to Belfast next Saturday. So I think in this next week, I hope to, see all my friends one last time, be really present, enjoy the time left in person with my parents, make sure I pack everything I need to pack. There's a couple presents I need to get for my friends back at school. Just the little things to, wrap up my break here in the city, and mentally prepare myself to enter back to Belfast and seeing, my other friends there again and all that stuff. So just preparing for that transition next week is probably my goal.
Are you going to be online for the first bit?
I am. Yeah, they announced at the end of December that I think for the first month, January, it's all going to be online. That's probably going to turn into February, March, April, but we'll hear about that in the next 2 weeks or so. But yeah, my classes don't start till the 24th, so I'll have a week once I'm back in Belfast to sort of just chill, get my groceries and stuff, and then start classes.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
So get your groceries.
Yeah.
So what is the housing situation at university like outside of the U.S.? Is there a dorm and a dining hall, or no?
No. So, well, I'm going to obviously particularly talk about my university. I don't know what it's like
Right.
other places because I only go to Queens. But yeah, so first year I was in student accommodation. It was it was very similar to dorms in the US, kind of, except for the fact that it's normal for everybody to have their own room. So I had my own room. I also, if you pay I think it's £5-10 extra, you get your own bathroom. I did that. That's what I ended up living in, but I didn't choose that. They just sort of put me there because I was international and we had to quarantine at the time. So it made more sense for us to only use our spaces and limit contact with others. So it was 10 people per floor. Everyone had their own bathroom, their own room. You shared a kitchen. There wasn't a dining hall at all. You'd have to do your own, because you had a kitchen, you could cook. You had a full kitchen, fridge, freezer, toaster, microwave, oven, all that stuff. So that sort of makes up for the fact that you don't have a food card to go to the cafe with. So groceries for me, I shop at Tesco. I have a club card there, get some nice discounts and stuff. And it's also just conveniently located throughout like Belfast and stuff. So yeah, I'll need to be getting some groceries. But this year, I don't live in student accommodation. I live in a flat with another friend. It's just the two of us. Usually, people live in like 4 to 5, and sort of like townhouse style, but obviously like European and like miniature. So they're not like massive like brownstones that you have in like New York City or in like Boston or whatever. I just live in a flat, so we just have one floor. But yeah, that's like the housing situation. I could live in student accommodation this year too, but I just chose not to. There's also these buildings that companies rent out called like, they call them like student roosts. So it's just like student accommodation, and you don't have to be a part of a particular university. You could be a part of any of the universities in the city. And they seem to have their own bathroom, have their own room. They have like common spaces and kitchens and stuff. Same setup, but just like bigger apartment buildings as opposed to like smaller sized, like 3-floor housings. So that's the. That's
Kind of sounds like senior classman housing back at Ohio Wesleyan. There was a couple of those interesting setups that you could only.
Yeah, this is crazy. Like in the U.S., the dining hall is such a huge part of a campus. And
it's always terrible.
No. I mean, I've had jobs at fancy pants colleges or whatever, and I can tell you it's not terrible there. I had a job at Bowdoin College in Maine. I mean, they were like ranked best food for many, many years in a row. They had like a chef that they hired, and they had like a lobster and stuff. So, if you go to one of these fancy pants places, it's not bad. It's very good.
Well, then Ohio Wesleyan is just awful, because every single year it was always the same complaint right after another. I actually found a caterpillar in my pasta one time.
That is disgusting.
It's very disgusting, and I still have the photo on my Snapchat. I saved that photo because it was disgusting. And not only that, like the fruit at Smith Dining Hall was always rotten or not ripe. The quality of the food was that of a.
I mean, let's not make too many enemies at OHU. OWU?
OWU.
Oh no! They have made an enemy out of me in more ways than just
I
that.
heard our biggest fan is the head of dining hall over there. So.
Well, actually, I have a bunch of stories about Ohio Wesleyan that I'll trash on later. But to continue on our discussion for today, obviously our listeners know that we are all three different in age and life experience. But with we are
that's the whole shtick of the podcast, which maybe we haven't like totally communicated very well. But like, I am like on the cusp of Generation X and a millennial, and I think, Alexi, what would you be considered as a generation?
Oh, I'd probably be. I mean,
what
I'm
year
also
were you born?
On 1995. I mean,
so you're like on the cusp of millennial and Gen Z, but Grace is definitely like firmly in.
Yeah, but like
by the birth year, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, by birth year, totally.
Yeah,
like Alec was about to say, like our main thing for this episode is we're going to go through a quiz and see what we really are. It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. We're going to see where our minds are in terms of our age. So, we're gonna do this one at a time. So, Michael,
we're not going to do this one at a time. We're going to go through each question and each answer them.
You know what? You are right. We're gonna.
That's how we're gonna do it. And Alec's gonna put a link in the description of the video
that you can do it yourself.
And do
that you can do. You can follow along. It'll be great.
Follow along, do it yourself, but don't follow along if you're busy. This is going to be an interesting. I mean,
if you're driving, I think it's fine. You just pull out your phone.
Yeah, of course. When you're driving, whatever. Yeah, distracted driving never hurt anybody.
Okay,
let's start with the first question. So the first question, if I'm reading this correctly, we're taking this quiz off of the good old people at BuzzFeed. Love the people at BuzzFeed, actually, kind of, sort of. What two descriptions best describe the most awesome parts of your personality? Wow, that is a loaded question.
Yeah, so I took a peek at this earlier because I thought maybe it was like homework for this podcast. So I kind of like went through some of the questions. And
Yeah,
I don't
so
know, should we like go through each option?
I think we should. I think we should
I already
tell
have my
everyone
answer.
what each option is.
Okay.
Okay.
So the options for those, they come with two descriptions for each. So the first one is open-minded and social, hardworking and ethical, intelligent and secure, self-reliant and adaptable, innovative and responsible, ambitious and realistic, and idealistic and passionate.
So who's going first?
Well, I kind of already answered this in my head. I think the two descriptions that best describe me are hardworking and ethical. I mean, like, just like with everything that I've been through in terms of sports, in terms of school, I've had to grind out a lot of years just to get to where I am. And for some people, that's not a lot, but for me, it's actually everything. So I do put my hardworking persona on a very high pedestal. My ethical side, I do hold in high regard as well, just because, with my job and stuff, I have to do things by the book, and I have to, cross my T's and dot my I's to make sure that everything's good before print. So I'd go with hardworking and ethical.
Grace?
So there's two options that I was sort of like juggling back and forth between. So I think out of all these, the most accurate is definitely open-minded and social. I was going to choose self-reliant and adaptable, but there are times where like I'm not the most self-reliant, There's sometimes where like it just works to rely on other people for certain things. But I would say I'm very adaptable as a person. I think moving around helped me do that and practice that more. And I always look to put myself in new situations and, not conform to it, but, do what I need to do to, not be as much of an outsider in certain social scenes. But I would say for me, definite answer, open-minded and social. I do think of myself as an introvert, but I also do value the social realm of life because what are we without our relationships with each other? Without talking to people. There's a line by the Blue Scholars where it's like, you don't know yourself if you don't know anybody else. And I feel like that speaks to some level of truth. And open-minded. I feel like I don't have any set opinions of my own. I mean, I do, but I also don't. So I always keep a very open-minded book because I see where people come from. They come from their own line of education and experiences that shape who they are as a person. And so you always have to take that into consideration when meeting new people and discussing topics and stuff. So definitely say awesome parts of my personality are my open-mindedness and my socialness, I guess.
Okay, so I have to go with idealistic and passionate. And that's because if I believe that anything is possible, like if, we just put enough passion into it. Like I think we could end war if we wanted to. I think I'm a pure idealist. I think that's really all I need to say about that. Okay.
Well,
so let's look at the second.
The passion side, I was just going to comment. The passion side to you is already given because of everything that's happened just this past year.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so second question: which two descriptors best describe the absolute worst parts of your personality? Anxious with a short attention span, rigid and overcommitted, rebellious and foolish, self-conscious and reserved, smug and petty, entitled and vain, or cynical and angry?
I say we do the same order that we did in, just to make this all fluid.
Yeah, like a loop.
Yes, and with that, I will go with cynical and angry. I tend to be very cynical, especially with the current circumstances of what's going on today. And my anger is definitely a part that I try to quell. It's very hard, but one of the things that I'm learning is the more mature that I become, the less angry that I get. So, one of the main things I'm looking forward to this year is just to be less angry and mature more. Just because anger, when I do things out of anger, it typically doesn't end well for myself. So, and I'm going to try to be less cynical, just because I like to keep an open mind about possibilities that'll happen in the future. But sometimes that's hard for me too. So I would definitely go with the last option.
For me, I know for sure the worst parts of my personality are my anxiety and my attention span. I also think that goes hand in hand with my psychiatrist's diagnosis of me. So, yeah, I definitely say my anxiety gets in the way of me being ambitious and, passionate sometimes. And then my short attention span, also, nips me in the butt when it comes to school. And, especially learning online first year of COVID, that was very difficult to deal with at the same time, knowing the ease of just being able to, mute yourself and do something else while the lecture's going on, or, little distractions and stuff definitely take my attention sometimes. But luckily I am medicated for those two things, so I have a little bit of a support system in that regard. Also a very good therapist, which I recommend everybody to have one. But yeah, definitely my anxiety and my attention span are my Achilles heel.
I would say the parts of my personality that I'm least happy with are the fact that I'm very self-conscious and reserved. So this is most especially with when I'm in a big group of people. I have a hard time speaking out, and I worry a lot about maybe saying something that makes me look bad, or saying something that would be taken unpopularly.
Well, I think the interesting part about all of our answers is that I can relate to what you just said, Michael, especially when it comes to feeling self-conscious. When I was back in my college days, I was always very self-conscious whenever I was in a very bombastic social setting, that I was going to do something that would set someone off the wrong way. That made me really hesitant to speak my mind, especially when it came to talking to my fraternity brothers. I remember I spoke my mind plenty, and it got to the point where, and this is just a sidebar, right? But it got to the point where guys didn't like who I was, but that was just because I was hanging out with the wrong people, and sometimes you have to learn that. So it's interesting, because I also relate to Grace's side of things as well. I too have a short attention span, and I too take meds for that kind of thing. It's not for everybody. I don't like it. I personally don't like taking Concerta. It's a very nauseating drug. But I've been prescribed it in the past. So, all right, and we're moving on to the next question. What are you most likely doing at a party? So starting with the first one. Honestly, I'm probably hosting the damn thing. Settling into a quiet corner in order to avoid too much socializing. Drinking, dancing, and finding out who I can potentially hook up with. probably hanging out with a close group of buddies and chilling in the backyard. I love making new friends and chatting with as many people as possible, even if they're strangers. I'm socializing with different groups of friends, documenting the night through my Snapchat. I'll make a fun appearance, but more than likely have multiple parties to attend in a night. Wow. So those are all of the options. Starting with myself, I will. Ooh, man. I mean, you see, I kind of want to select more options, or just like multiple different ones. But I'm probably hanging out with a close group of buddies. Actually, I'm sorry. I'll go with the one right under it. I love making new friends and chatting with as many people as possible, even if they're strangers. I do thoroughly enjoy that because I do like learning about people who I'm not familiar with, and I like learning about their life story.
Okay, I would probably say, honestly, probably hosting the damn thing. That tends to be the case for me back in Belfast. After a night out or before a night out, I'll be having prees at mine, inviting my friends over, and then us all going out together. Or after the fact, inviting people back to mine, after the pubs close, and people came to me to chill and stuff. A close second choice, though, would probably be the initial answer Alec was going to give, probably hanging out with a close group of buddies and chilling in the backyard. I don't have a backyard anymore, so that's less likely. But yeah, so I guess it kind of goes hand in hand with hosting the damn thing, close group of buddies and hanging out all in the same room together.
So I would definitely go with the one that you guys had as your second choice, which is just hanging out with a few people. Obviously, that's only if there are a few people at the party that I know. If there's no one there, I would be sitting in a corner avoiding people. I have a hard time meeting new people. Like, I never really got out of the stranger danger phase of my life. So
that's good. That's a good thing.
Is it though? No, I'm
Yeah,
not sure
kinda.
that it is good.
Look at him hanging out with his niece and nephew.
Yeah. So I'll go with that one right in the middle. Final answer.
Well, hey, I'll put it to you this way: the last person I tried to know who I wasn't familiar with ended up robbing me. So sometimes stranger danger does work effectively. So, well, I mean that's pretty interesting. I've gone to a lot of parties in college, and honestly, I've done all the options before, so it's kind of hard for me to pick which one. Moving on to the next question.
Where do you
this is a hot button topic.
On the political
This is something that not a lot of people want to hear or talk about, but we're gonna discuss it here. Where do you fall on the political scale?
I mean, you also have to remember that most of the people that are listening to this right now watch a math YouTube channel, and that I mean, maybe I'm stereotyping here, but that is like fairly homogenous when it comes to this question.
Well, there you go. We'll see how people react when we open up a little bit on this. I kind of consider myself.
Why, you got to tell us what the possibilities are, bro.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, so the options are, starting at the top: very conservative, somewhat conservative, fiscally conservative, socially liberal, somewhat liberal, very liberal, fuck the government. I love that. I care about issues but hate politics. Wow. It's so weird. I would have to say that I am somewhat liberal. I'm still, in my mid-20s, I'm still trying to find out where I fall on this scale. I really don't like playing this game sometimes because, in New York, I'm a hardcore conservative. Here in Ohio, I'm a bleeding liberal. And in Gotham, I'm Batman. I just don't really know who I am. And it really doesn't matter. But I would go with somewhat liberal.
Ooh. Ironically, as a politics student, I don't really like this question. Oof. You know, I want to say fiscally conservative, socially liberal, but I don't have the proper evidence to be confident in that choice, to defend that answer. So a little bit easier. I care about issues, but I hate politics. Again, ironic because I study politics, but studying politics has made me kind of hate it. I feel like there's big issues that need to be tackled, but politics can hinder actually solving them. And I don't know, I find that in my studies and stuff, you get to see the flaws in a lot of different political structures, physically and like metaphysically. So what like liberalism really is, what conservative really is, and those debates surrounding those. So it's always hard for me to like really see myself in one or the other. I'm kind of confused why I don't have moderate on here. I feel like that would be an option that I would choose. But yeah, I care about issues, but I hate politics. I think a lot of things get construed with it. There's a lot of opinions, and opinions are very important. But sometimes it's hard for people to have certain opinions without having conjoining experiences to really see the bigger picture of the world. So I don't know if that made sense, but I care about issues, but I hate politics. I think it brings out like the worst in people sometimes.
Okay, so here comes the hot take for Michael Penn math viewers. I am somewhere between very liberal and fuck the government, but
Nice.
the fuck the government, I feel like could be construed as like
Anarchist.
No, I'm a little bit anarchist. I'm like I would consider myself a communo anarchist. Like a communist anarchist, if you were to like push me.
I got some. Sorry.
So, I'll go with very liberal, just because I think the fuck the government, it could be construed as like people who were part of the January 6th riots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also the thing with communism too is that like I think it's a very ideal state. It's a great idea, but it has never been ethically ethically, what's the word I'm looking for? Pursued.
Implemented.
Implement it. Yeah, it always, the way it's actually like played out in societies where they've tried to, it's always like borderline turned into dictatorships and stuff and authoritarian.
Yeah.
So,
I know. Yeah, I agree that has been the case, right? It turns into it's like been authoritarianism, authoritarian communism, right?
yeah. So I've like hope for that.
Like,
it could be.
Where's the like, sort of democratic communism? You know what I mean?
I think it comes,
which is like democratically controlled, but like communal.
I think it's
ethics
still, because you have that. Well, then it's not really communism because you have that like one person on top, and with that one person on top comes power, and power is sort of like a poison in terms of leaders. It could take things down a darker path. So I feel like that's where communism sort of has its flaws. Is that you have this one leader who you're supposed to trust, or maybe it's like a couple people leading, but the overwhelming amount of power and leadership is easy to morph into dictatorships. I feel like that element of power, you want to think that it could be good, but it ends up being bad.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would say, like, in my heart, for like a 1,000-person civilization, that is like ethically what I think is the best. But something along the lines of like the social democracies of Northern Europe is what I think is probably, at least at the moment, what I think is maybe implemented the best in terms of like kind of global governments.
Well, I mean, I am going to quote the awful Thanos from the MCU. You know, this Earth is finite. I think once we all come to that realization, I feel like some new form of communism or socialism will, you know, make its way into a democratic mindset. I mean, the United States is already a social democratic nation, and people fail to really grasp that. But I mean, like I said before, communism is a good idea. And again, with what Grace said, it hasn't been implemented in sustainable ways. But to move on from that topic, we're going to talk about something a little bit more fun. What is your personal relationship like with new technology? So starting from the top, first option, I'm on the cutting edge and know about every new device on the market before anyone else does. I've just accepted it as normal, fun part of my daily life. I'm for sure interested in it, but prefer playing around with vintage tech. I'm always excited to get the newest models, but I'm honestly always one step behind everyone else. My phone and computer are like my body parts. I feel naked without them. I love trying out new technology, but occasionally like to take a break from it. You can hit me with the newest iPhone and I would have no idea what it was. I'm out of touch. So interesting. You know, if I'm going to be brutally honest, my phone and my computer are basically like my body parts. I feel naked without them, and I would include my camera, my Nikon D850 in that conversation, because literally whenever I leave the apartment, except for maybe Sunday when I go to the gym and I don't have any responsibilities, I take my camera with me. It's always in my car. It's always at my desk. I use my laptop for all my editing needs, and obviously I use my phone for everything. So I'm going to go with my phone and computer are like my actual body parts. I feel naked without them.
I would have to say, as a Gen Zer, I've just accepted it as normal. It's a fun part of my daily life. None of these other options really quite fit where I would say if I could add another option, I enjoy the possibilities and the integration of technology into society. I find them fascinating. I get really excited about what like innovations are being created and stuff. But I don't really know a lot about that. So not enough to say I'm on the cutting edge of every new device. But yeah, I've accepted it as part of my daily life. There's always going to be a new something. You know, now VR is like a whole new thing. That's crazy to me. And it's like you can have it in your house and play games with it. I think that's sick. It's not part of my daily life. I don't have set like that. But yeah, like from, you know, in New York City, at least in the past like couple years in subway stations, they've created these sort of like massive tablets, except you can't really like press on them. So I guess it's not really just screens and stuff
So like a TV?
So like a TV. That makes sense.
That's pretty new.
That's pretty new, right? But like in the subway stations, so it's like that's part of my daily life, you know? Like I see that stuff when I was coming down to my mom's place, like or going to see my friends, you know? So I'd say, yeah, tech is a part of my daily life, especially not part of my school life. And yeah.
All right. So for me, I was about to answer the same thing as Alec, but I mean, to be honest, like I spend a portion of each day like watching tech YouTubers and stuff. So that would probably make me in this category of I'm on the cutting edge and know about everything before anyone else does, just because like, you know, that's the truth. Okay. So next question, what would your ideal relationship situation look like? So the first one, I prefer being submissive and like my partner to be more dominant. The second one, the best relationship would be having a stable, loving partner who's my equal in every way. I would most enjoy having wild, hot, passionate sex with several different open-minded partners. I'm not really the relationship type, but if I have to settle down, it will be someone self-sufficient and chill. I'd love to have a more traditional relationship, one true love, marriage, kids, etc. I want to have a fun, wonderful, supportive relationship that doesn't require having children. My ideal relationship would be with someone who challenges me and inspires me, even if they are a little offbeat.
Well, some of these are really good. I would have to. I have a very strong pull to the third to last question. I'd love to have a more traditional relationship, one true love, marriage, kids, etc. And the reason why I wanted to pick that was because, I was in a relationship not too long ago, and I'm going to keep this quick because obviously I don't want to muddy the waters. But we professed our love to each other. She talked about marriage, kids, and all that stuff, and it was a moment where like I was all about it, and she would, if she was here right now, I think she would probably pick one of the more open relationship type questions, because at the end she came to the realization that she wanted to date other people as well as me. So I would have to be sharing my love with other people, and I'm not really about that, and I feel like that's become normalized nowadays. So, and I honestly wish it wasn't, but with the internet and Tinder and stuff like that, everything's so readily available. You see all these images and you just ponder through it. So, but I would have to go with a more traditional relationship.
Okay, so there's a couple that I would choose. Okay, I'm at sort of a split decision. First one, I have two options. I'm sorry. The best relationship would be having a stable, loving partner who's my equal in every way. I feel like that's really ideal for me, but at the same time, I feel like I'm not really the relationship type. But if I had to, I would have to be with someone who's self-sufficient and chill. I feel like both of those, sort of have this underlying like equal partner kind of thing, and allows for like some level of my own independence, because that's really important to me. I find I tend to get really swept up in relationships and sometimes be too idealistic, like the one true love, marriage, kids thing. And I realize in my generation, that's not what everybody's out to get anymore. And it makes me think if I'm not really out to get that either. I don't know. Am I the relationship type? I think I'm a really good partner to have. But yeah, I guess I'd choose the best relationship would have to be a stable, loving partner who's my equal in every way. I need stability. I can't be, on my toes all the time. I want a supportive partner. I feel like that goes with the equal thing, wanting each other to do better. Stable in that regard, where you're always like inspiring the other person and pushing them to do better, but being content with who they are as a person, but still, appreciating all aspects of them. So I'd say, yeah, that'd have to be my choice. Close second would be I'm not really the relationship type though.
Okay, I'm going to have to agree with Grace. So I would say the best relationship would be having a stable, loving partner who's my equal in every way. Maybe this comes from like my experience of having my parents divorced when I was young, and so I was not around people with a stable relationship, and I've always sort of like wanted that. I mean, I have that or whatever, so I mean, I guess I win.
Would a traditional relationship also include those aspects? I don't know.
Yeah. So, that's a good question. I think you have to read between the lines on these things a little bit. And I think the more traditional relationship has some sort of imbalance of power. I think that's how you have to read the differences in those two answers. That's at least how I'm reading the differences in those two answers.
Yeah, I guess when I should clarify this. When I think of a traditional relationship, this is what I think of. I think of supporting each other equally, or
Yep.
I mean, not really equally because it's never going to be completely equal, but I mean, supporting each other, venting to each other without that
Um,
dominance,
it's up to you. I
just
mean, you
like,
can come over to mine. I know that's kind of going up and then going back down.
what was that, Grace?
Yeah, you gotta mute yourself if you're gonna talk on the phone, Grace.
Yeah.
You got that button.
Shit. No, I did press it, bro. I pressed it. Fuck.
Did you? I don't think you
Yeah,
did.
I did. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. We can hear
That's
you.
crazy. That button don't
So,
work.
but yeah,
So
like
sorry.
I guess just to like really clarify, because I don't, I don't believe in the traditional, like 30 years ago, traditional norms of what a relationship is. I think relationships have evolved, obviously, like I talked about, but I don't think that a relationship should be open. I guess that's just my only part about it. I mean, everyone can be
Well,
sufficient.
I mean, should be, or you're not interested in it.
I'm not interested in it.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, yeah, because those are kind of different, right? I mean, should is like imposing your will upon two people that you don't have anything to do with, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, but
Yeah.
if we are being honest, I don't think that my personal opinion about it is that I don't believe it is necessarily a good idea to have an open relationship. I understand people have done it. I understand Will Smith is going through it. So with Jada, and I give them credit for being honest about it with everybody. I don't know why they're honest about it with everybody, but they are. I just, if we're talking about what a relationship in my eyes is, it's like you're committed to an individual, to an ideology that you're both supporting each other. You're going to go through life together, and you're going to grow together. Yeah, that's just. I mean, there's more to it, but we could go on and on about this kind of thing. So I'm just gonna quit.
I mean, we could do that about every question, right?
We
Okay.
can do that about every question.
So this next question is, how would you describe your religious beliefs? I'm agnostic, not religious but spiritual. I enjoy sometimes attending service. I have my doubts but still regularly attend service. Yes, I am very religious. I assume you're referring to Abrahamic religions, and I am not one of those. I am an atheist.
So I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, it's a cliche to say like I'm spiritual, but I would have to go with the second one. I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. I mean, when I was in college, I read the Quran and the Bible side by side. I took a class on Islam in America Today, and I was also a part of a Bible study with a group called Athletes in Action. So I learned about both scriptures to a in my eyes, it was well detailed on both ends. I learned a lot about Islam, and I learned a lot about Christianity. So with those big players that have been in my life, I do like to think that there is, I do want to think that there's something beyond this life, whether that's heaven, hell, whatever that might be. I don't like to think the idea
Just
of
hell, no heaven.
No, yeah, exactly. Just hell, no heaven. But I do like to think that there's something beyond this land and these mortal, vessels that we have. And I want to date back to this because I believe this kind of reinforces what I believe. Back when an individual that I went to high school with, his name is John Entreri, may he rest in peace. He took his own life it was a very hard time for everyone in our high school and our graduating class. And I think what really got me through it, even though, I I hung out with this kid, so like I had a connection with him, in school. And the thing that I just kept thinking about is he knows the secret, to quote Betty White, who just recently passed. May she rest in peace. I think he knows the secret that none of us know. So I hope that wherever he is, he's experiencing euphoria, whatever that might be.
I would have to choose that I'm agnostic. Just to provide a definition for those who may not know, I'm reading this off Wikipedia, so of course there's probably a better, more accurate definition of this somewhere, but for the purposes of this conversation, I'll just cite this one. So it's a couple sentences, so bear with me. Agnosticism is the view that the existence of God, of the divine, or the supernatural is unknown or unknowable. Another definition provided is the view that human reason is incapable of providing sufficient rational grounds to justify either the belief that God exists or the belief that God does not exist. I stand true with that. One of my biggest things about, or critiques about, standardized religion is that you don't know for sure that this persons existed, or that this was really their views of things or whatnot. To choose to believe in something, I think, is fair. I think that's in our human, you know, intention, is to try to find something that can help explain the things that we can't understand, or to provide like support and comfort for the things that we need, that we can't get from regular life. So I have to say I'm agnostic. I think bottom line is that, or one of the assumptions for all religions and all spiritualities is that it is unknown, and we try to make sense of it and we try to know it for ourselves, even though it's unknowable in and of itself. I don't think there's any stone cold proof that God exists nor doesn't exist. It's all just like a belief system that we've constructed ourselves. I also feel like being agnostic, for me personally, I find that it is kind of tolerant of those who do choose to believe that something else does exist, but knowing that bottom line, at the end of the day, there are flaws and unknowns in such things. So yeah, I'd have to say I'm agnostic.
All right. So I'm an atheist. I just am. I don't believe that there's a need for a higher power to
Another thing that I
cause the
wanted to
universe
kind
to
of.
exist. Although I will say real quick, I've gotten really into some religion, like academic study of religion YouTube channels recently that they're really good.
Well, yeah, I think universities are a great way to discover those human tendencies, right? Because I think it's dad would always, I had this conversation with dad, and he is too on my level, where he doesn't practice his faith. He's not a very religious individual, but he does always say that this earth is too beautiful for it just to have happened. I mean, the way that it's naturally set up, it's too beautiful for it just to have taken place. And so he believes that there is like a higher power and stuff like that. But I mean, I think it's in everyone's right to think differently too. I think that's the beautiful part about our minds.
Going back to, I think maybe it was like last week, I don't know, one of the other conversations we had, it was about like, is maths invented or discovered or whatever. I feel like at the core of that question is sort of like, who created the universe? Who created these things that are discoverable or are already invented for us? And I feel like that's where, adding on to what Alec just spoke about what our dad thinks, I think that connects to that idea as well. Like there is this unknown, there's these unknown substances, these unknown answers in the fields of math and science. And I think sometimes that X factor that we're missing is some higher being. So I know that's opposite of what Michael just thought, but I that's my stance on it. Like there has to be, not that there has to be, but I feel like there must be something else in the working, some other power that made it so maths was discoverable. You know, can something be discovered if it wasn't already invented in some way beforehand by something? You know, that kind of, I don't know. I just had a thought right there, had to put it in.
Well, we can also talk about this conversation, this topic of conversation for days, but just in the interest of time, let's move on to the next question. What would you order at a new restaurant for dinner? First question, first statement rather. I consider myself a foodie, so I definitely know exactly what I want walking into a restaurant. I would probably consult Yelp or the waiter to see what's most well reviewed. Anything ethnic. I love foods that tantalize my taste buds. I'm down to eat whatever, but I'll definitely be ordering a drink. Everything. I will eat everything. I'll usually see what the rest of the group is ordering to determine what I want. I tend to have my old standby, something delicious and preferably meaty. I have to go with I'm down to eat whatever, but I'll definitely be ordering a drink because I need to have a beer with my burger.
That was my instinct, especially back at school, like being legal and stuff. It's like, oh, order food and a drink. I'd have to say for me, I usually see what the rest of the group is ordering to determine what I want. I don't know why. Sometimes I just can't make up my own mind. Very indecisive if you can't already tell by me not being able to choose between some of these options. But yeah, I'd have to see what the group is ordering. See what kind of like meals they're going for. Is it like a light, kind of like salad kind of night? Is it a pasta kind of night? Is it a meat dish? You know?
So I would say, I mean, this is tricky for me because I'm, as you guys know, but not potentially everyone's listening here. I've been vegan since 1997, so I can't just order everything on the menu. It's a lot better than it used to be, but so I would maybe like condense all this down to anything ethnic because generally going to like sort of internationally flavored restaurant has more choices for me.
I mean, like kind of a sidebar on that too. The United States cuisine culture is very heavy. It's relied heavy on the meat, animal protein, that kind of deal. So I do think that, especially when I was playing football, right, anything meaty was good. You know what I mean? I've taken a step back from that. But I still eat meat, right? But I
think there are vegan NFL players.
Really?
Yeah.
Could you name one for me? Because I'm not aware of any.
He's gonna have to Google that.
I've just heard of them.
I've not heard of any
plant-based NFL players.
Justin Fields is probably one of them. Now that I think about it,
Tom Brady, Cam Newton, Theo Riddick, David Carter, Derek Morgan, Daquan Jones, Colin Kaepernick.
Oh, Colin Kaepernick.
Andre Patton, Griff Whalen, Wesley Woodyard. Yeah, we have to quash this rumor that you can only be athletic or have like big muscles or be strong if you're vegan or whatever.
Yeah, there's
this weightlifter from Ireland actually named Clarence Kennedy who's vegan, and he is something like 95 kilos, and he like snatches 190 kilos and clean and jerks like 225 or 230 kilos. I mean, he's
Jeez.
very strong, and he's like an absolute unit. And he only eats plants. So yeah, I'm gonna put my foot down on this comment that when you're playing football, you needed to eat meat, because I haven't eaten meat in a long damn time, and I'm like in very good shape.
Yeah, and Alex probably always been in better shape than you have. No lie. No lie.
And that's also true too, because I remember when you were starting. I don't know if this was really when you started getting into like the lifting culture, Michael, but I remember when you were kind of getting very passionate about it, you were talking about how you had to stop lifting because you were gaining too much muscle, and I thought to myself, I'm very jealous of you. Because
Yeah. I mean, I've got weird genetics like that, right? I put on muscle tissue pretty easily.
Yeah, that definitely comes from your mom's side, because we did not get that.
No,
Yeah.
I think if you look at my dad, I mean, he lived / your grandfather. He lived like a very unhealthy life.
Oh, very.
But I mean, he's in very good shape right now, and he's like 84 years old, and you can tell that he's got like broad shoulders, and has sort of the ability to be really strong and stuff. I think it's from him.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I when I made the comment before about how I had to eat meat when I was playing football, that was just because of the culture that was influenced on me to think that way.
Yeah. I mean, the culture,
and
right?
and I'm also just an avid fan of cheeseburgers and everything else in between, so I can't.
Right.
not
I mean,
admit
just
that.
like fuck the carbon that's like ruining the earth, but whatever. Okay, so
Right.
which of the following scenarios are you most scared of? Being surrounded by people who all think, act, and look the same, not being able to speak my mind, being surrounded by strangers, everyone hating me, dying in a plane crash, not being able to finish something I set my mind to, or shitty people in shitty places.
Ooh, a lot of these scare me.
Facts.
But I think while I do not like being around shitty people in shitty places, I feel like that is a place to grow. Even everyone I know hating me, right? Like, I think that is a learning stage in someone's life to be like, oh, should I change something about myself, or should I just change who I hang around in? Dying in a plane crash or a shooting, that I mean, those are just everyday circumstances that I think I've accepted that will happen. But if we're being completely honest, being surrounded by people who all think and act and look the same really, really, really scares me. And that, also bleeds into my political beliefs a little bit, because I don't like echo chambers.
I would have to say definitely not being surrounded by strangers. I actually find I tend to be actually very comfortable around strangers. I think, and this is going to sound, I hate this answer because everyone I know hating me. I hate that answer that I'm going to choose that one, but I am. Now, this is everyone I know. So that I'm including that domain includes my parents, my brother, my uncle, right? Family, friends, people who I hold close to me, who are in my like direct life. I fear them hating me because I seek their validation, and I am most vulnerable with those people that I know. And to, show your true colors and then to have people despise you for that is, I find, very hurtful. I had a friend who actually did that in the past. I considered myself very, very close to her, and one day turned around and threw all of my problems back in my face and said, "You just want to be miserable and you're a terrible person." And it's like, did you not get anything out of, did you not read between the lines throughout this relationship, this friendship with me? Like, people misunderstanding me. I guess that also is a fear that for me ties into that answer. People probably hating me because they don't understand me and stuff. So yeah, I'd have to say everyone I know hating me, because again, similar to my answer to one of these previous ones, like the people around you shape who you are and are a part of your life and can help you grow. And if those people who I hope to be there, to be my supporters and for me to support them, if they hate me, then I'm at a loss. Are we really anybody in this life if we don't have these connections and understandings with other people, and toleration and contentness with different personalities and different people's different thoughts and stuff? So yeah, I'd have to say everyone I know hating me.
Okay, so I'm sort of drawn to that one as well, but when I really think about it, I have to decide if it's something that I find unfavorable and scary, but is possible or impossible. And although it's very scary for everyone I know to hate me, it doesn't seem like a possibility. So it's not like a reasonable fear. I think of these, it would be sort of like a reasonable fear. And it's sort of at the same level of this everyone I know hating me as being surrounded by strangers. Again, because as we discussed before, I have never left the stage of being a 4-year-old, and I have stranger danger.
Yeah. All right. I think this might be our
question.
Last question. Here we go. All right. And the most important one, which I feel like has a lot to weigh on the end result of our quiz here, but whatever, we'll just trust BuzzFeed. Which decade would you most want to come of age in? And I don't like any of these except for the 2010s. So I'm going to go with 2010s. Because during the 2010s, I experienced the most growth. And I mean, at what point are we going to reach this utopia of no racism and no homophobia or no, whatever,
and no money?
And no money, right? Like
no money.
Just like, I'm sorry, what was that?
They did it in Star Trek.
They did it in Star Trek? They don't have any money in Star Trek?
That's right. Why can't we get there? I think if we get rid of that, all the other things fall.
You raise a really good point, Michael.
That is honestly like a really good point. Yeah. I mean, I just to be honest, I don't want to pick any of these options now that you said that. Like I want to live like 150 years in the future, because I feel like at that point we'll reach we'll
might be
reach
too
a point,
hot,
whatever.
Though.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Yeah, I mean, or it might be too cold, depending on how Mother Nature intends to end its fever, which is us, and the parasite that affects her.
Yeah. Okay, so you're saying the 2010s?
Yes, because I do believe that in the 2020s we're in the middle of this pandemic, and I think we're going to be in this pandemic for the next 10 years. So
yeah, totally blow.
To
come of age in the 2020s, which is exactly what Grace is doing.
Hey,
basically, she's gonna have the short end of the stick in terms of this pandemic botching all of that. But yeah, I would go with the 2010s.
I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not like I'm jabbing at you or whatever, but you did get the shitty end of the stick, right?
I don't know. I'm gonna die last. I'm gonna see this through.
Is that true though? Is that true?
Okay, so what about you?
Now I looked at these questions beforehand, and I thought about a little story about how I would answer this. So, our mom was coming to age in like the 80s or so, late 80s. And same with our dad. And, looking at their old pictures and stuff and trying to understand what life and growing up during that time would have been is hard, because you can only hear it right through secondary or primary sources who had lived through it, but not knowing it for yourself. So, I would honestly really like to come of age during like the 80s and then, be in my adulthood during the 90s and experience the turn of the century, because I feel like a lot of things that happened during those times definitely influenced or like the step before my generation. So I'd want to see that. I would want to live through that. I would honestly, opposite of Alec, I would want to grow up through each of these different time periods and see what that'd be like, coming of age from the 40s all the way up to the 2020s. I think that'd
just
be
like
fascinating.
as a student of history.
Yeah, or something like that. So, but I would have to go with 1980s, particularly because, so this past summer I was in California for about a month. I spent the first week with one of my friends who grew up in Northern California, unlike me, but like my mom. And then I spent 2 weeks with my grandma in the same town that my mom sort of grew up in as well. Like, we'd always drive past her old house, pointing to where her old high school was and all that stuff. And particularly near our grandma's house was like right outside of her like little neighborhood is just like wine country and rolling hills and all of that stuff. And and I could drive now. This is the first time I'd visited our grandma where I could drive, and she couldn't. So she allowed me to take the car out to go feed her cats and, get groceries.
Begrudgingly, I should add.
No, she had no other choice. She was recovering from a heart attack at the time. She couldn't drive. So it was very,
But she
very
allowed
nice
you to drive begrudgingly.
Okay. Either way, during my like time with the car, I would drive through the wine country because it's like in the neighborhood. And, hearing stories from my mom, she was doing that same thing when she was my age, blasting music in the car, windows down, driving down these long straight roads into more wineries and vineyards. And I felt for a moment like I remember parking the car on the side of a vineyard, looking at another vineyard and then like the golden hills of Northern California. And I was like, imagine what this was like 40 years ago. And that's what my mom was doing. My mom was probably in this exact same spot 40 years ago. And I thought that was so sick. I tried to extend that ambiance of nostalgia with like music that I had, gotten to know through my mom and knowing that she listened to that when she was growing up. And I really feel like that rock scene, this new age of pop that was coming in, I really would have loved to be growing up during that time. And even during that trip, actually, I went out with one of my friends to this park, this like national park. It was called, I want to say it's like Rockville National Park or something. And after I went, I told my mom, I was like, oh yeah, I went to this park. And she was like, that's crazy. Me and my friends would be up there all the time. And, I was looking around and I was like, this is a big park. This is like a national park. And there's like not that many fences. There's a couple to, say like, don't go here, right? There's like maybe one state trooper I saw that entire time. But walking through this park, I was like, my mom was out here with a couple cases of beers and her 10 closest friends doing God knows what in this park in the middle of the 80s with no supervision whatsoever. But she was living her best life. And they must have felt that they were like on top of the world, on these hills and running through the forests and stuff. And, trying to imagine what this place was like before, all like the new housing developments and shops came up, because grandma would be like, this wasn't here 20 years ago. This is a new building, da, 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 da. So yeah, that just goes on to my answer of this question. I'd love to grow up during like the 1980s. Like my mom.
Okay. I got to go with the 90s, which is when I grew up, because at least in Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas, in the late 90s was awesome. And anyone that was there knows it. And maybe we'll have a whole episode about how great it was. There's even a documentary about how awesome it was, called The Towncraft. Called Towncraft. Anyway, check it out if you guys want. Okay, so what are the results?
I am exactly what I thought I was. I am a millennial, born between 1981 and 1997. I thought the cutoff for millennials was 95. And I thought because I was born in 95, I was literally on the bookend of it. But I guess I was a couple years off, but I kind of assumed that this was going to be my end point.
Grace?
Yeah, it says I'm Gen Z.
And it says that I'm a millennial. And so,
Wow.
Whoa.
So this is an accurate quiz.
I was born in 1979, so
Well,
not really, but close enough.
close
What
enough.
is the cutoff for millennials?
1981.
1981 and 1997.
This is a little bit crazy, Alec, because we answered very differently.
We did answer differently, and I'm
answered
curious
differently on every question.
We all answered differently on every single question, and the only one that was different is Grace. But it correctly. I don't know. Listen, BuzzFeed. I got some questions about this quiz that I would like to take up with you, but we'll save it for later.
So I hear a kid upstairs, so I got to wrap it up. Let's get a quick media recommendation from each of us, and then we'll sign off.
Okay, my first media recommendation, or my second, I guess. I don't know which one this is, but my media recommendation is going on that same note of music. Grace, you brought this up, and I feel like a lot of people listening to this podcast would enjoy this form of hip hop, but the Blue Scholars. This was this group. It's a two-man group. I saw the first time I ever saw them perform was at Langston Hughes in Seattle, Washington. It was this theater called Langston Hughes, and they were selling their first ever CD. It was literally called Blue Scholars, and it had this cute art of Seattle. Anyway, it was the first rap album my mom ever bought for me. Second to Eminem, the Eminem Show. And it really, really, I mean, there's something about the Pacific Northwest and the hip hop world that is so artistic and so creative and so, it's just filled with nuance, and it's filled with, a lot of stories about political unrest and civil unrest as well. Just, talking about different aspects of life and racism and all that stuff. But I think that the Blue Scholars really put it in a profound, digestible format that I think everyone will enjoy. So I would say listen to the Blue Scholars. They're not making new music, so I think they have about like five albums or so. Listen to all of them. They're good.
I don't really have something I'm like dying to recommend. But
I mean, that was the homework exercise.
Yes.
Yeah, that whole homework thing did not compute.
Yeah.
I'm on break. No, but I will say, if you're down in dumps, if you caught COVID, if you have nothing else to do with your life, if you're like me and you're trying to like live out this next like week or so of break, challenge yourself to watch all of the Marvel movies in timeline order. That's what I've been doing. It's very interesting. I'm all the way up to I'm past Black Panther and
So you're
Strange.
deep in.
Oh, I'm deep in. I think phase 3 or 4 now. Minus the TV shows.
Yeah.
Minus the TV shows. I'm gonna watch those separately because those are part of the timeline and stuff. Now I'm just going back and watching the Spider-Mans because they're not really in the comic book universe thingy. Like the old Spider-Mans with Tobey Maguire. Yeah, they don't have those on Disney Plus. So if you're down on your luck and you're looking to waste a bunch of your time, watch all of the Marvel movies in order.
Yeah.
Okay. So I am going to recommend this stand-up comedian that I just found in the last week named Esther Pavinsky. So she has a special on Comedy Central that I haven't watched yet, but I've watched clips from it. I think I'm not sure I have access to Comedy Central. I'm going to try to figure out how to watch it. But she's like very, very funny. And she also has a podcast, which is not super active right now, but it was active a lot during like quarantine and stuff. It's on the YouTube channel Esther Club. And one of the running themes throughout the podcast is that she like sort of made it in LA. Like she's been on TV shows and she's like a stand-up comic with a comedy special and all of this stuff. But she also has this like weird desire to just bail and move back to her hometown. And like, I feel a very big parallel with that because I've like sort of made it in academia. Like I've got tenure, I'm a math professor, all this kind of stuff, like sort of made it. But I have this like big, you know, sort of pressing weird desire in my gut to bail and move back to my hometown of Little Rock, Arkansas. So anyway, that's my suggestion.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. We appreciate your listening, as well as your patience as we still try to figure some stuff out, also try to find our voices in this weird world that we're now pursuing. Once again, this is Alexei Pavloff. I'm joined by Grace Pavloff and Michael Penn. This has been the Penn and the Pavloffs, and we'll talk to you next time.